the phone with a client who is panicking about getting invited to the interview, which is what we wanted. But now that she got the interview, she's just like, what do I say? How do I interview? Let's prepare. And I get it. I was telling her, I completely understand your feeling. I had the same feeling when I was invited to interview as well for migrants. There is a mismatch between that feeling of panic and the data. The rate of getting from the second phase to the interview process is 20 plus or minus 5%. And the rate of going from interview to getting your grant funded is 45 plus or minus 5%. The hard part's over. This particular client is part of Career Lab. And I was just telling them as a group, writing gets you to interview, but speaking gets you the job. And one of the other postdocs in this group was just like, but Kathy, writing's the easy part. Speaking is the hard part. And we were all laughing, but actually I agree with her completely. Having done the Career Lab as like a single molecule, one-on-one, one person at a time program, I know that that's not true for everybody, but on average, this appears to be true. That's also my experience. In this video, I'm gonna cover my 4P equation for preparing for your interview. At the end of this video, you're gonna have an analytical interviewing strategy that works at every stage of your scientific career. If we haven't met yet, I'm Kathy Charastia. I'm a physicist and a career coach for scientists, and I teach practical, quantitative, step-by-step methods so that you can create a career and therefore a life that you love. And if you're not sure exactly how to do this in this competitive scientific job market, I've been there, done that, and I can help. Hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it to get my weekly training videos, and take the scientific superpower quiz that hundreds of scientists have taken to help them identify their own particular scientific strengths at kathy.science/quiz. I developed this quiz for myself when I was struggling with my third job hunt and my second postdoc was ending, and I was just like, what am I good at? What can I do? If I'm gonna quit my faculty search, what am I gonna do with my life? And this helped me identify and articulate exactly what my superpowers are, what my strengths were as a scientist. Let's get right to it. Interviewing. Hit like if you've ever gone to an interview and walked out of that room and just been like, that could have gone better. I really don't think that it went as well as it should have gone. Me too. Of course, we all have. The good news is that's part of the process. I want you to be going to interviews and practicing and figuring out where your weaknesses are so that we can fix those. And therefore you can get the result that you're looking for. It's part of the process. We've all been there after analyzing the data from my interviews and those of my clients to figure out what separates those interviews where you feel really good about the interview you gave and you get the result that you came for, you actually get the grant, from those where you don't and you also still feel kind of shitty about it. I came up with the 4C equation to describe successful interviews. C1 is the contents, your science. Your science is really good, but it could be, for me it's definitely the case, that you're cramming too much into the time that was allotted. On average, the time that you get for an interview is less than 30 minutes, and the time for your presentation is less than 10 minutes. The rest is Q&A. I did this at my first job interview. It wasn't a grant interview, but it was a job interview. And I just crammed too much stuff. I wanted to tell them everything about my entire scientific career in that one, 10-minute presentation in these 3 slides. And the question I got back was, do you think that you did a good job answering the specific question that we asked you, which is a summary of your career? No, I didn't do a good job doing that. Clearly, I didn't. The answer is no. So that's a problem that I have. Fair enough. And in order to figure out if you maybe have that problem too, are you getting questions like that? Are you running out of time, number 2? Or number 3, do you find yourself speaking too fast? If the answer is yes, it's possible that you share my particular problem, C1. The contents of the interview talk. It's as if somebody came over for dinner and you're just shoving food into their mouth without giving them the time to chew each bite and swallow before moving on to the next bite. You, of course, wouldn't do that. So don't do that to your interview committee. At least that's what I was doing to my interview committee. So how I solve this problem for myself, and I also recommend for my client, is to make a summary slide. These are all my aims, and this is the aim that I'm going to discuss in particular in these next 10 minutes. And the committee has read your entire proposal, so they know that you have a broad range of aims, and you're just going to talk about in detail, show off your expertise, demonstrate your authority on just this one. The rest of the interview is Q&A. And C2 is the container. It's the framework that holds the information that you are feeding the panel. I teach my AEIOU framework, which we go into great detail in Career Lab so that you can answer interview questions within this container. Brief summary. A, answer the question directly. E, give 3 to 5 pieces of evidence to support that answer. I, give the additional information the committee might require. 2, O, make the obvious conclusion. And then U, return the focus back to the committee. One of the most common questions I get is how to do that last step. I go through hundreds of examples inside Career Lab, but one of the easiest, most simple ways to do that is, does that answer your question? If you're a client, professional tip, you hear me doing this a lot. When I finish delivering some knowledge or information to you, you hear me all the time asking you, does that make sense? Questions, comments, concerns? That's me returning the focus back to you. That helps me make sure that I have delivered you the information that you requested and it fully answers the question that you had. The second most popular question is, what goes under I, or information about me? And that is your space to address any elephants in the room before the committee asks you. We go through every single possible example of elephants in the room within Career Lab, and the 2 top most common ones, which I also experienced, are questions about my qualifications. For example, in one of the interviews, I was asked, you never published this paper from your first postdoc, what's up with that? That's an elephant in the room that I should have addressed in that I framework of answering any of the previous questions above before it got to the committee asking me that question. Number 2 is doubts about my age. One of my clients also had a grant review come back with, but you're almost 40. That's an elephant in the room, and that's something that you can address, the advantage of being a little bit older versus not further along in your career, and does that match up with your record and your record of achievements? That's something that you can also address in the AEIOU framework when you're answering a question. So when you get a question, think AEIOU and go through those steps. C3 is context. It's an interview and things will go wrong. By definition, things will go wrong. For example, missing committee members, or the whole interview schedule is running behind, or technical problems so that you won't be able to see your slides, or people can't enter the Zoom room. Your practice talk must pass the chalk test, which means, could you give this presentation with just a chalkboard and a piece of chalk, no slide? Can you make your case clearly and convincingly without your slides? As physicists, we are pretty used to deriving equations or drawing graphs on the chalkboard. And the strength of this is twofold. 1, you might get 0 slides, and you may or may not know that ahead of time. Number 2, your case for why you should get the grant is convincing and it's solid without using your slides as a crutch. I always practice my interviews in front of my sister without looking at my slides, not even once. I use an automatic slide advancer that I copied from my PhD advisor, and I never, ever, ever turn around to look at that. And that is how you optimize this variable, confident, comes from your purple unicorn factor. And we work on this ad nauseum in great detail in Career Lab, including this exact formula for how to write it down, because you need it for everything. Jobs, grants, budget meetings, whatever, you name it, you need your purple unicorn factor. You have got to be able to tell me why you're the only one who can do this research project with P greater than 0.9. And bonus points if you can do that within 75 seconds. That's what gives you confidence at that grant interview. And if you haven't done this work and you can't articulate why it has to be you and no one else will do in 75 seconds, then it shows. It shows in your interview. If you're saying things like, I think, or I believe when you're practicing, that's a clue that maybe you need to go back and look at that purple unicorn factor and make sure that it's above 0.9. If you're not confident that it has to be you, I can hear it. I can see it from the way you hold yourself, and therefore the panel will be able to as well. If you've been through Career Lab or Leadership Lab with me, then your purple unicorn factor is above 0.9. Here's a bonus tip for you on that fourth CE, confidence. You are interviewing them too. Bang! I know, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like the focus is on their needs and you need this grant because otherwise, I don't know, the world will end, you'll lose your job, I don't know, whatever, insert your story here. But you're also there to dig data on, one, what it takes to actually get your research projects funded, which is an essential part of your job as a scientist. And two, if that grant is actually the one for you, if that's what you really want. I have turned down grants before and I only realized at the interview stage. Another example is a client who turned down one grant in order to get another one. Instead of an NSF grant, it was an NIH grant, and she's a professor in Colorado now. And that was a grant that suited her much better, that was more in line with what she wanted to do. That's also part of the interview process. If you can understand that one grant isn't the be-all and all for your career, then it will actually improve your performance at their interview. And there you have it, the 4C equation to help put you in the almost half of scientists who nail their interviews and get their grant. Contents. Is your presentation exactly what they asked for? 2, the container. Use the Vowel Framework to answer every question. Think A-E-I-O-U. C3, context and the chalk test. Things are gonna go wrong. Make sure that you can give your talk with just a piece of chalk and a chalkboard. C4, confidence and courage. They go hand in hand. Make sure your purple unicorn factor, why it has to be you and no one else will do, is 0.9, and you can articulate that in 75 seconds or less. In this group session, one of my clients was saying, but Kathy, my thoughts are the biggest problem during my interview. And that's true. In fact, I thought, wow, I got the right group of postdocs to beta test out this program in a group, because that guy nailed it. That client is exactly right. So next week, this framework is a tough one, but it makes all the difference between clients who reach their goals and those who don't. And a bonus tip for those of you who have done this homework with me and actually have the data to analyze. If this video was helpful and you're gonna use my 4C equation to help you prepare for your next grant interview, forward it to your colleagues who have also made it to the interview stage and can use this strategy to articulate why they should get the grant. Let me know so I can make more helpful videos by commenting below with questions, comments, concerns. There it is again, returning it back to you. Or just hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.